Rockspace contacted me, like they've done with others, and sent over their new AC2100 router. If you'd like the truth about this router and not a simple advertisement, you're in the right place. This Rockspace router, model RSD0614, is priced at $80 and comes in a box. Boxes are boring, but this one has a lot of its specs on it, so let's look at it. You can set up a Wi-Fi schedule, it's dual band, supports wireless repeating, and has gigabit Ethernet ports. It claims to support up to 1,733 megabits per second on the 5 GHz band and 300 megabits per second on the 2.4 GHz band. It supports 4x4 MU-MIMO, or multi-user, multiple input, multiple output. It has a dual-core processor, beamforming tech, and some parental controls we can touch on later. It will support up to 25 to 35 clients at once, and it supports IPv6. It supports 802.11a, BGN and AC, WPA2-PSK, and it will run on 100 or 240 volts AC. So, looks promising. Let's see what's inside. You get your manual, which just shows you how to set it up, and that's it. You also get your power adapter, Ethernet cable, and the router, which makes sense. It's really lightweight. It feels alright, but it certainly doesn't have a premium feel. You can tell this is one of the places they saved on costs. The router has a decent footprint with measurements at 5.5 inches deep, 9 inches wide, and 2 inches tall. You can rotate the antennas up and to the side, but they won't go back farther than straight up and down. The antennas mostly stay where you put them, but if bumped, they will move around. On the back, you get a USB 2.0 port, WPS/reset button, 4 gigabit LAN ports, and 1 gigabit internet or WAN port, and the power port. I'm not the only one who noticed it looks like you can build Legos on this thing. But let's see, can you? You can. That means only one thing. There. A Lego man to provide increased network security, and a Lego Rockspace router to provide more speed. That'll do. They should have called it Block Space, but I digress. I'm sure this is no accident. It's a fun idea. Even my kids got in on it. As a Lego base plate, it gets a 10 out of 10. On the back, you get a USB 2.0 port, another skimp on cost, only USB 2.0. It'll work, but you won't get face-melting speeds. The TP-Link Archer C80 is priced pretty much the same, during recording at least, and it doesn't have any USB ports. Well played, Rockspace, well played. Let's hook it up. For anyone who has it, yes, it's nerdy, really nerdy, but because of it, my nerd street cred is off the charts. Some people think my patch panel is overkill, but for those people might I submit this for your consideration. Hooking up the Rockspace router anywhere in my house, here, for example, means I just have to move one cable from my modem to port 12 on the patch panel, and then plug port 12 on the wall plate to the WAN port on the new router. Then just plug port 13 on the wall plate into one of the LAN ports on the router, and it's done. Try doing that without a patch panel. Setup was pretty easy. You can download the app RS Wi-Fi, or you can do it in a browser. I don't want this video to get too long. I'd rather talk about the router's features and performance, so I'll keep setup quick. You can take note of the Wi-Fi name on the bottom of the router, and then connect your phone or computer to that Wi-Fi. On a PC in a browser, you can type in 192.168.0.1, and then follow the steps to get it set up. The manual does a pretty good job of running you through it. I don't have footage of setting it up in the app, because, well, I didn't do it there, but it's a similar process. From the app, you can check and control several things, such as seeing what devices are connected, including their details, check the USB hard drive status if you've connected one, set parental controls for specific devices, like setting a cap on their download speed, receive notifications when their device gets on the network, set a schedule when their device can get on the network, change its name, and blacklist or whitelist websites, and blacklist the whole device to block it entirely. Parental controls are a great feature, and they are pretty common these days, and a must since these darned kids won't regulate themselves. The app seems to struggle with opening some file types from the storage screen, so it's only good for just seeing what's there or the basics. Want to do more? Jump on a PC. You do get several other options in the app, but for the rest of the video, let's jump over to the PC. After entering in your password that it doesn't seem to hide for some reason, you're greeted with a status screen. You can see the wireless network name, the status of your internet connection, USB status, how many devices are connected, including wired devices, and a few other bits of info. Under Internet settings, you can change the connection type, change some DNS settings, but usually you'll leave this alone. Under Wi-Fi settings, you can change the Wi-Fi name and password. You can separate or join your 5 and 2.4 GHz bands under one name, set the name and set the password. Under Wi-Fi schedule, you can set a schedule when your Wi-Fi will automatically turn on and off. If you want the whole stinking house to stop streaming at 10 p.m. and go to sleep, for example, this will do the trick. You can turn on or off your guest network and adjust some of its settings. Under parental controls, you can set some of the rules we already talked about when we were in the phone app. It's all here as well. You have some VPN settings to mess with if you'd like, and you can do a bit of configuring and set up access to the USB storage. You can also turn on or off IPv6. Under advanced settings, you can control the bandwidth each device gets. It's actually a pretty cool feature, and I wish my super pricey Linksys had this. You can pick from the presets or make your own, and it works. I set this up on my son's tablet, and he wondered why the video was so fuzzy. It would make any network admin happy. You can turn off the ability to use the app, which is a good security feature. You can turn off the LED lights, but they're not that bright, so not a big deal. You can set up some MAC filtering to block devices, or only allow certain devices, which is nice. Set up static routing, configure DNS if you use any of those services, set up virtual servers, which looks to potentially be port forwarding, maybe, configure DMZ, and universal plug and play. And lastly, under system settings, you can configure your LAN settings, or set up some DHCP reservations if you're into that sort of thing. You can set the date and time, or make sure it's correct. If you're setting time limits or anything on a schedule, you'll want to make sure the router time is correct. You can update the firmware here, as well as set up remote management, view logs, reboot the router, and set up automatic maintenance, which is a fancy way of saying auto reboot. Whew, well, we made it through that. If we switch gears and look at the coverage, it seems to be pretty good, actually. Even compared to my high-end Linksys router, it actually does fairly well. All throughout the first floor, signal was good and pings were low. We pretty much had smooth sailing for the most part. My son said Wi-Fi did drop once or twice, and I saw it happen once and I was down for about 30 seconds or so. But sometimes that happens. Wasn't anything alarming. My son also said that his videos on his tablet were fresher, so score another one for Rockspace. Speed tests were a bit slower than my Linksys, at 210 megabits per second compared to 240. Still nothing to shake a fist at, though it does say its max throughput is just over 1700 megabits per second. My laptop connection usually was around 600 megabits per second, and wouldn't connect any higher than 866 megabits per second. I had 4 people streaming video, and I used VPN for my work without issues. The USB drive speeds weren't great. I transferred 2 large files from my NAS in the garage to the drive connected to this router's USB port, and I never saw any transfer over 4 megabytes per second on average. Transferring the same files from my NAS to a computer on my network resulted in much faster speeds. I looked around in Wireshark. I didn't find anything fishy, but I did see the router identifying itself as a Tenda tech. Rockspace is obviously in cohorts with Tenda, who is another Chinese company who makes networking equipment. This is a rebranded Tenda router with a new shell, or at least with some sort of redesign. Tenda tends to get good reviews, so it's not a bad thing. Check out this Wi-Fi adapter from Rockspace and Tenda. They're nearly identical. Oh, and check out this interface from Tenda's flagship router, the AC23. Looks familiar, right? This practice is not uncommon, though I figured I'd bring it up. It's nice to know what you're getting. So it's verdict time. What does Budget Nerd think about the Rockspace RSD0614? I like it, although it's not without compromise. Build quality takes a hit, but the Lego top is fun. The USB 2.0 port is sad, but it has one when others in this category might not. It might not be the best, but for the money, it really does have a decent amount of features. I think this would do well for an entry-level to mid-range network and for people that don't need blistering speeds, but would want a few features to mess around with. Overall, our whole house didn't notice that I had made a change. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully it helps you decide if this router is for you. If so, there's a link in the description if you're interested. Thanks for watching.